Yeah, hi, good afternoon, friends. This is a very rainy, drizzly, late April afternoon, so we are not going to go outside. I just decided not to take any pictures from the wheel railroads that run pretty close to the River Rhine, where I live. Anyhow, we are now in the hobby basement, and I'm just to put you through a couple of thoughts regarding professional switching. Actually, I just want to figure out how you really behave with real little figures. Oh, this is a real nice guy. I would just say we just call him Joe. He will be accompanied by two other guys. Here is Joe again. Joe will just ride the locomotive, he will be the engineer, but it will have a belt pack, so it'll be a remote controlled locomotive, so you will see Joe beside the rails and as well on the loco, and you will see two other guys that do the switching and the coupling and uncoupling, because I just want to find out how complicated is it in real life to work the switches, to look at the logo, to spot the cars and see how complicated things are. You will be introduced in a fraction of a second into our small yard. It is called the Winslow Yard on my BNSF railroad, which is actually set in the Pacific Northwest. The city of Winslow is fictitious because it's originally based on Bainbridge Island, very close to Seattle, but our Winslow Yard is somewhere between Seattle and Vancouver, British Columbia. It could already be in the area of Bellingham or Mukilteo, where you'll see probably some cars going and coming from the Boeing factory. Yeah, folks, you can just see we are peeking through the woods from an elevated point of view. The guys have just gathered on a small loco shed, only a two-stall shed, and now they're just preparing a light move on the lower deck of the layout to, well, go on for their switching tasks. And the three gentlemen just prepared, just leaving the local shed after doing the first checks of fuel, coolant and everything. So the two locals are now departing. Actually, they are not repatched or renumbered. This will going to happen in one of the next steps. So even if it is BNSF time on my railroad, okay, we just find two small switchers here in the BN livery. I apologize, you see in the foreground, Jim has just left the loco and now he is just throwing the switch. And on we go. He will just have to wait until the two locos pass, because the switch has to be realigned, because another loco is about to leave the engine shed in the next 20 minutes. So the advice is bring it all back to the original position. Okay, the switch will be realigned. Actually, it's done by a push rod, and then Joe just goes back to the loco and they head empty for the yard. Now, the two locos have already left the main line. They just go over the receiving track. We just follow them as they already have to pick up a lone bulkhead that has been placed on the main by a recently coming up BNSF train. So they just go around. You can see the local just slowly approaches the car. The guys are just standing there. And on we go for the first coupling maneuver. We are now connecting the air hose, and we do have to wait for about 30 seconds, which we do not hear in the model railroad time, to have the brakes pumped up so that they easily release. Alrighty, now we're just preparing to enter the track of the short line, which is actually passing over to the yard. The engineer stands just on the side sill with his belt pack, and the guy in the orange suit is now throwing the switch. You may wonder, it's originally, as you can see, a motorized switch, but today the switch motor has a failure, and so it needs to be adjusted manually. Now you see the bulkhead is just moving slowly during passing the guy that just works the switch. Our man number 3 stays at the back of the car. He's very happy that he's now riding a little bit longer. The train stops, which will be aligned, which will be done here manually, and the guy is jumping on the car. Next thing, what you now see is Joe has just stepped on the back of the car, because next thing is he has to throw the switches, so the easiest way for him is just to stand here at the back end of the bulkhead. Slowly the train passes the switch, comes to a halt. Yeah, you see him aligning the switch while the cars are just moving onto the tracks to be spotted in the yard. The bulkhead slowly just comes the way. The crane is just working here in the foreground. Our 2 guys are just doing happy. It's not the best weather, but it's not raining here in the Pacific Northwest, so they really have a good time out there standing and having a light breeze, just combing their hair. And closer they come, you see these guys are happy. Next step is bringing the bulkhead to Winslow Yard. We're just circling around the railroad's workshop. As you can see on the tracks, there is placed a car for our tourist railroad, which is under inspection. And now the train is just coming along, coming to a stop, because we need to couple onto the famous Hi-Cube boxcar. Here we are. Both guys have left the center, the bulkhead car, so we're just doing the coupling. And the air hoses need to be connected, and we have to wait until the air gets pumped up in the 3 cars, which you will see in the next scene. Guys have uncoupled the cars, have just entered the loco, and we slowly move over the switch, which leads us now into the runaround track. The 2 engines are running around the cut of cars, which has already been placed on the track, which is now 1 car longer because the bulkhead is at the back end. And now the guys are just heading for the switch. Now it's a facing switch because they need to couple onto the train. You see he's waiting down there until the 2 locomotives have just passed him. Then he will throw the switch, which is done right now. And next he will step on the loco, because the loco now couples onto the train. Slowly the loco arrives at the head end of the cut of cars. It's a gondola. And now they are mated. Wonderful. Both of our switchmen have now stepped down from the loco. Number one is just waiting until the end of the train comes close to him because he needs to uncouple a car. And number two is just there at the front end with the engineer because he needs to throw the switches. What happens now is the locos just disappear with 3 cars, actually with 4 cars at the very moment. We're just heading back to wait for our guy until the cut of cars has just arrived at the very spot where he needs to disconnect the last car, the bulkhead, which has recently been delivered by us. So the train stops, last car has been uncoupled, and we just move away with the 3 remaining cars that are now going to be spotted here in one of the tracks because we have to sort out first the 2 box cars, and after having done that we need to place the gondola on a different track. The guy with the yellow hat has thrown the switch. Now he secures the track and he just watches as the train, especially the 2 boxcars, come close to him, and then he just gives the engineer a sign to stop so the train can come to a halt and uncoupling can be done without too much of a walking distance. We'll just follow it later in a second here with the camera. Now we just come clear of the main track of the short line, and now we do stop. As I told you, the engineer has already left the locos, has stepped into the gondola, where he just enjoys a smooth ride here in the mild Pacific Northwest Pacific Northwest air. He just directs his locos to the 2 remaining boxcars. Our guy already has lifted the coupler lifting bar, and now the gondola slowly pulls away. We can really hear that the air hose is just being disconnected by only just moving the gun away. And we carefully head over the switch to see and to go back to our train. Fireman has bravely and calm waited until the loco just comes back, and here the engineer just comes along and the car will be coupled together in a fraction of a second. The engineer and the other switchmen are just waiting until the locos just arrive. Then they just hop on and the journey continues for a steel mill where the 2 cars have to be placed. You see, switchman number 1 is at the back end of the first locomotive. The engineer has just stepped and hopped on the second loco 394, where he stands and oversees the action, and the guy who will be doing the throwing of the next switch is at the end of the loco 394. So you see, not only these very little moves have just caused a lot of stepping up and stepping down on the loco, and just causing our guys a lot of trouble, but you see, it's a tough work, and it really depicts that a lot of guys need to be working on the railroad, and it's a hard work. You really have to step up and stay on the tracks, work with a couple lifting bars with the air hoses, etc. So maybe we join one of the next crews or switching puzzles during the next videos. Thank you for watching today.